Good evening. I'm your host, Karen Hudis, in this DCTV series about the network of global corporate control. Today's segment is pre-recorded and is about divide and conquer, thanks to DCTV Carmen Stanley studio producer, Maurice Jackson audio and prompter, and Cruchet Starnes floor director. Divide and conquer is the way that the banking cartel always tries to remain in power. When you know this, it doesn't work. First, let's talk about what we're fighting about. I said in the teleprompter for last week's show on gold, as for the gold, you know that the global debt facility still holds the monetary gold reserves of the world because of the many times that I prevented the banking cartel from stealing them. You know that the global debt facility holds the Treaty of Versailles bonds worth $2 quadrillion because the banking cartel's agents tried to get me to approve the sale at a discount. I filed a lien against the Federal Reserve in the states where the Fed is located using the debt from these bonds. This is how we're winding down the banking cartel. The banking cartel tried to resist by invalidating the filing in Illinois, but I informed Jesse White, Secretary of State for Illinois, in a letter dated April 19, 2015, that the lien remained valid. I then bankrupted Jesse White in a commercial lien because he tried to invalidate the lien on the Federal Reserve when he had no authority to do so. This is what I said in the commercial lien which Jesse White defaulted on. Jesse White acted outside his duties as Secretary of State of the state of Illinois by disregarding the letter dated April 19, 2015 that was cleared by each member of the Board of Governors of the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development and International Monetary Fund, informing him that he did not possess the authority to invalidate a valid UCC-1 lien of TVM LSM 666 on the insolvent Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago. Specifically, this is what I wrote to each member of the Board of Governors. As determined by the Development Committee and subsequently informed to them, the Global Debt Facility has filed financing statements on the 12 Federal Reserve banks in the United States as a precursor to winding down the Federal Reserve and the other private central banks under the bankruptcy regimes of the jurisdictions in which they're located. Country debt will be offset against the obligations of these central banks held by the Global Debt Facility. The Secretary of State of Illinois has sent me this letter challenging the debt that's held by the Global Debt Facility, owed by the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, unless I provide supporting documentation. I intend to contest the authority of Illinois' Secretary of State to challenge the filing, which was done on behalf of the Board of Governors of the World Bank and is therefore exempt from the applicable Illinois statute. Please let me know if you object to this letter. I've posted this correspondence to the public at large on the Internet, and I have a link in today's teleprompter as well. The Global Debt Facility is the name for the trust that contains the world's assets. The Global Debt Facility was deposited with the World Bank and IMF at the end of World War II because Jose Rizal and Ferdinand Marcos created the World Bank and IMF for that reason. This was done in secret because it was their plan that the assets would come out of hiding at the end of 50 years. Any claims are cut off under the statute of limitations after 50 years. This way, the Board of Governors did not have to take any old claims on the world's gold into account. Jose Rizal was the Black Pope and was the Superior General of the Jesuits at the time, and Ferdinand Marcos was Rizal's lawyer. The countries and elites agreed to all of this in the bilateral Minesfield Breakthrough Successor Agreement. Okay, you're saying, this is all very interesting, but What does it have to do with divide and conquer? In case you didn't notice, we're fighting against the banking cartel, and the banking cartel is fighting us back. They want to take back the assets that are still on deposit in the global debt facility. That is what we're dealing with here. I have the legal authority as overseer mandate trustee of the global debt facility. I vote the U.S. shares on the Board of Governors. That is my connection to the 1%ers. Technically, under the legal structure of the World Bank and IMF, this means that the Board of Governors represents the member countries. But this is not good enough because the governments of these countries are not legitimate, not in the United States and not in the rest of the countries. That's because of state capture. The banking cartel has captured the Secretariat of the World Bank and IMF, and the banking cartel has captured the government of the United States. Its Constitution of 1789 is not in effect, and the governors have stolen the titles to the property of all of the people who live in their states by issuing bogus warranties of title, while they issue the real titles of the property to the banking cartel. I need to be plugged into humanity, which is the beneficiary of the global debt facility. I need to be accountable to all of humanity. This is my way of fulfilling my responsibilities. Going on DCTV. So when the banking cartel accuses me of being controlled opposition because I'm a lawyer and because I'm Jewish, you know that I'm doing my job on behalf of humanity. The fact that I'm a lawyer and that I happen to be Jewish has nothing to do with the way I'm doing my job. I first tweeted about controlled opposition on November 16th. Then the banking cartel said that I had my facts wrong about what happened in World War II. And I'm going to read you the comments from a fellow named Ortan Davian. Nazi Germany didn't just arrest Jews. If there were no gas chambers, why did Fabian socialist George Bernard Shaw call for Zyklon B to be invented before it was produced? And why did Bayer apologize for being involved in its production? The Russians installed the gas chambers in Auschwitz after the camps were liberated. The banking cartel and its agents have invested a lot in this hoax. Ortain, all of the people, can prove what is what after we have ended the currency hoax. The history hoax is just to keep the money flowing to the banking cartel. Both of us know how you first tried to pretend that you were not an agent of the banking cartel, and how I told you I knew who you were. Now at least you're showing your true colors. The teleprompter broke for the segment on December 5th, 2017, so I'm going to put what I wrote about Barry Kamish back into today's script because it goes to the heart of the banking cartel's divide and conquer attack. I already diffused Mossad's trap to blame the Jews and Israel as scapegoats for everything, the old divide and conquer trick. How did I do this? Barry Kamish is a famous Canadian journalist who died suddenly on the very same day that Mossad learned how Barry Kamish was exposing that Shimon Peres obtained nukes for Israel by trading 4,500 Yemeni babies to the United States to use as guinea pigs in experiments showing harm to humans from radiation. Barry Kamish saw through things. I put an article that Barry Kamish wrote at the end of the December 5 teleprompter. Hint: Israel was working with the Nazis to increase anti-Semitism in order to attract new immigrants from Germany. Barry challenged us to see the world as it really is. When we're armed with Barry's insights, the banking cartel's efforts to divide us don't work. More on Auschwitz and on controlled opposition. And I'm going to quote from an article that was in the Costco Connection. And I accused Costco of perpetuating a lie. I said World War II was fought to end this lie, and World War III is not going to be fought at all as we tell the world the truth. Auschwitz was actually a uranium enrichment plant. The Banking Cartel deleted my YouTube video of the DCTV segment on Auschwitz. I restored it, and I put a link to that segment in the teleprompter. At the end of the teleprompter, I described the Jesuits and real Nazis' role in Germany during World War II, and I read a portion of that the previous week. I tweeted about the Grey Pope, who's the head of the bloodline families that think they own the Vatican. I say think they own because Jose Rizal has put the world's wealth in the global debt facility. I then put the name and picture of Pepe Orsini, but the identity of the Grey Pope is not something that's public information. I asked a group of people, and they advised me to tell everyone that this is something we could all find out later, working together. So then I tweeted, I said that Orsini had no role. If it turns out that Pepe Orsini is not the Grey Pope, that goes for whoever is the Grey Pope. One other point of housekeeping. The Banking Cartel likes to put words in my mouth. One of their ploys is to have an agent compliment me and then post negative statements prominently in my social media, trying to make it appear that I condone their remarks. I have given an example of this technique at the end of the teleprompter for a Twitter account named Kim Cooper. The last point I will leave to Aubrey. It's easy to see that the number of people who believe the lies of the Banking Cartel far outnumber my audience, and not everyone in my audience believes me. Aubrey answered my statement that enough people know the reality. Aubrey's tweet, which you can see in the teleprompter, says, "We do not need a majority, just passionate, unwavering 5%. That's enough people know the reality." And I say to Aubrey, yes, Aubrey actually said this, revolutions do not need a majority, just passionate, unwavering 5%. That's us. The other point to make is one that John Kennedy had made. It's his favorite saying, "A rising tide lifts all boats." John F. Kennedy was just one of the long list of assassinations in the United States by the Banking Cartel. Just like Abraham Lincoln, who was being charged between 20 and 30% interest by the private European central bankers to finance America's Civil War. Both President Lincoln and President Kennedy chose to create a currency outside of private central banker control. The long list of assassinations and attempted assassinations by the Banking Cartel includes Charles Lindbergh, Andrew Jackson, Huey Long, Louis McFadden, James Buchanan, Warren Harding, Zachary Taylor, James Garfield, William McKinley, Abraham Lincoln, and John Kennedy. So we've established that there's a hidden reality and that much of what is hidden from us is corruption. The best part, though, is that one of the things that's hidden from you is the wealth of the world. This wealth will not do us much good if we're not able to access it. There are two reasons why I'm confident that we are going to access the world's wealth. One reason is the power transition model from the National War College that tells us about the very real coalition for the rule of law. The proof that this coalition exists, you can see pieces of it like the BRICS. The missing ingredient that you don't see, that's people who are responding in my social media. That's why YouTube erased the comments on my YouTube channel. The coalition for the rule of law is only growing stronger, and the fact that YouTube is erasing your comments shows their weakness. The second reason is the United States Constitution, which is not in effect. I've proven that this is the case in my email to Neil Gorsuch and the commercial lien on Neil Gorsuch, which he has defaulted on. To Judge Gorsuch, I, the world's gold and United States military, back the United States Constitution of 1789. The U.S. military is with us, our gold, and the U.S. Constitution. Uncovering the cover-up of corruption is at the core of my message. This tweet went viral. The Banking Cartel now sees that murdering Justice Scalia did not pay off. Germany and Japan are counting on United States monetary gold to stay out of World War III in the global currency reset. And I forwarded a message on the 7th of February this year to Antonio. Thanks. I only got 4 hours of sleep last night, and I'm going to crash now. I just learned how to make videos public. I didn't make that last one private, and it took me twice as long to upload. The hackers are out in force. This is because one of the videos that I uploaded couldn't be accessed. As for Donald Trump, he is not the legitimate president of the United States. Donald Trump is bankrupt under a commercial lien that's held by the Global Debt Facility, containing the U.S. monetary gold reserves. These reserves are being deployed in order to enable the United States to fulfill its treaty obligations to defend Germany and Japan. I've been fighting the banking cartel on behalf of humanity ever since 1998, when I represented the World Bank Staff Association on a board committee to end corruption in the Human Resources Department of the World Bank. When the recommendations of the Drysdale Committee were simply rolled back, I wanted to find out why. This was edited out of the teleprompter 3 times, and I had to switch to my laptop to keep it in. You can see correspondence between me and Bob Drysdale in a tweet. I've addressed this issue in my letter to that agent of the banking cartel, Judge Gorsuch. Judge Gorsuch has not answered my letter of the 13th of February 2017. I reminded Judge Gorsuch that he needed to respond, or he would be bankrupted under a commercial lien. This reality is there for everyone to see and is as plain as the nose on your face. And there was somebody called Freedom User. Is the Philippines become monarchy? Read some article that Queen Victoria has a twin brother and now owns the whole Philippines. And I responded, that's disinformation which Wolfgang Struck gave to me. Queen Victoria married her cousin George III, King of Hanover and King of England, in secret when she was 14. Her firstborn son, Marcos Manuel, was raised in exile in Portugal and crowned the King of England in the early 1860s. Victoria never divorced her first husband. Queen Elizabeth is illegitimate. The UK and the Commonwealth are in interregnum. And somebody named Omega 36001. I love how you just come to us as a humble messenger of information that the dog and pony show mainstream media can't tell us. I love your niche called Truth, from the heart. You're refreshing and honest. May the Bible be in your focus often as these days tick down. And what I wrote, as you can see from my post yesterday, YouTube refused to post my comment. YouTube is owned by Google, and Google was created by the CIA. The search engine effect, which is when Google especially targets people to give them search results that highlight disinformation and screens out the truth, is giving people a false reality, and they're not aware of this. Social scientists have seen that the search engine effect totally changes the results of voting and popularity of candidates. and this undermines the entire foundation on which democracy rests. My advice is that there is every reason to expect the coalition for the rule of law to prevail, and that we are going to have a soft landing. People should invest in precious metals as insurance, not investment. As for the price of gold, this is going to be determined by UNCTAD using a basket of currencies and goods and services. The price of gold maintains value over time. It's going to take us a while to mint the aurum. I have put these comments on the teleprompter for last week's DCTV segment. Ruth Strotkamp, I want to thank you, Karen, for your priceless information and monthly updates on the truth of what's really going on with the banking cartels and crimes and evil agendas the big bank heads and elites being done on the United States and the world. You're so vital and courageous in your fight for truth and justice. And Ali Twaj said, Hi, Karen. How come they haven't shut down your YouTube channel? Doesn't make sense. Also, I thought the Black Pope was bad, so why give back the gold? Thank you. And my response, YouTube doesn't want to admit that they're playing with your sense of reality, although that is exactly what they're doing. Instead, they're trying to influence you without your knowing. YouTube refused to post my videos on secret societies, gold, and the military, which can be viewed on archive.org, and I've given the links. I just had to use a search engine to locate these links, and the results came up on page 3. The first results were all disinformation and articles by the CIA about me. Nestor Aguilar has already answered your second question for me. And Nestor wrote, the Black Pope is not the head of the snake, and not all Black Popes are bad. As an example, what Dr. Jose P. Rizal, also known as Father Antonio Diaz, does. And somebody named Sucrum286. This one is brilliant, Karen. You cover everything. This one is ideal to send to newbies. Thank you. P.S. No matter how sabotaged or painful the audio is, we always hear the information. They are failing in their attempts to put people off. And somebody named New Fancy Free on the 17th, 2017. This article, oh, that's me. That's my name on, on Zero Hedge. This article is nothing but propaganda, and the Zero Hedge should be ashamed at running it. The reality is that the world's assets deposited at the end of World War II in a trust that's administered by the Board of Governors of the World Bank and IMF are now being deployed in a global currency reset. Included in the assets are bonds that were issued by the Fed in the 30s that, together with accrued compounded interest, amount to more than $2 quadrillion and cancel country debt. The interest payments that are going all to the bankers is only a big scam that is now over. Enough people know the reality, which is that the banking cartel is now being wound down. The evidence that this is true is in this notice to that illegitimate G20 and its corrupt secretariat, and I have a link to that notice. And I've already read you some of the comments of Brian Scott Dawkins, so we can just scroll past them. Okay, let me read a comment. I'm not charged with treason because I'm defending the Constitution of the U.S. The one who's committing treason is Donald Trump because he's tried to fool you and keep you under a second secret constitution that doesn't contain your Bill of Rights. Instead, you're foolishly refusing to accept the U.S. monetary gold reserves and cancel that scam called country debt, when in reality, it's the banking cartel that owes humanity $2 quadrillion. You're paying Rome and the City of London interest on country debt in a big scam and bribing members of Congress so that they can declare a state of emergency and cancel your Constitution of 1789. As for Germany, the U.S. cannot fulfill its treaty commitment to defend Germany if we don't have our monetary gold reserves that are in the global debt facility. This means World War III and the end of humanity. You're either a shill or a fool. In either case, you're dead wrong. By writing these comments, you're trying to convince others. That makes you guilty of trying to wipe out humanity. Fortunately, the power transition model from the U.S. National War College is showing us that we, in the Coalition for the Rule of Law, are stronger than fools that are helping the banking cartel. I just noticed that shill Brian Scott Dawkins is claiming that Trump has the backing of the military. Trump has the backing of the agents of the banking cartel, like General Dunford, who are traitors trying to crash the unconstitutional Federal Reserve note. You've already seen how Dunford tried to steal, unsuccessfully, the U.S. monetary gold reserves, reserves which are under the control of humanity, and not that foolish shill Scott Dawkins and not Trump. The U.S. needs its monetary gold reserves. These reserves are being deployed in the global currency reset. No thanks to that shill Brian Scott Dawkins. Abolish the Board of Governors of the World Bank and IMF, which administers the world's wealth. Now you know what a foolish dupe or shill that Scott Dawkins is. The troops who have not betrayed their oath to defend the U.S. Constitution, which are more than 70% of the rank and file, are backing me. Why hasn't Dunford said anything about whether the Constitution of 1789 is in effect? Thank you for staying tuned to this series about the network of global corporate control. This segment is about divide and conquer. We're fighting against the banking cartel, and the banking cartel is fighting us back. They want to take back the assets that are still on deposit in the global debt facility. The banking cartel is not getting the world's monetary gold reserves back, and they are not getting the $2 quadrillion in Treaty of Versailles bonds back, because we, humanity, need them to end the corruption in the world's monetary system and wind down the banking cartel.